That's James's fancy meal for dinner today, and he'll have to watch for bones in his salmon, and that's mine. And I'm going to be reviewing Pandora's Clock, and I have already talked about, I've already reviewed the Doomsday Key. I haven't put it in the little library yet, and I'm going to compare the two, because it is interesting the way somehow I'm picking out books that have been around in my library that have commonalities, and they seem to have something to do with whatever's going on in whatever I'm preoccupied with, or whatever at the time. So now, so Pandora's Clock, I have not quite finished, I should say. I was going to finish it this morning, and then I got doing some other things. So I'm on page 304 out of 357, but
You'll finish it today.
I'll finish it today, and I don't think my analysis of it is going to change. So this book is about a deadly flu virus that causes heart attacks, or at least that's how it looks so far. It's a great book to read during this pandemic. They're talking about Soviet military biological warfare research centers, which mostly focus on viruses. Page 119 is a quote, "We're certainly in this together," which is another thing that we've heard a lot of, right?
We're not hearing that much of it anymore.
No, we're not.
Oh, yeah.
No. It seems like some of our politicians read this book when it was published in 1995 and said, what if we actually bring the plane's passengers back home everywhere with the virus, thereby turning the entire world into the plane, rather than considering dropping a nuke on it in the desert? Page 261. They're thinking of going, this is the captain, really. I mean, the captain's making all the decisions for
the captain
of the plane, and it's 250 passengers or something on his plane. And
it's a big plane.
Yeah, so they're thinking of going somewhere very populated, like Cape Town, with a possible pandemic virus on board that could kill half the world's population. I mean, this captain, he's trying to fly his crew of, and passengers, 250 people to safety. And it's like, okay, you have a virus that nobody wants them to land. No country wants them to land because a virus has gotten on board of the plane. And so they think, okay, well, we don't know how to control this thing. You can't land here. So that's basically the story is set on a plane, which I know you're going, oh, on a plane? And you're thinking snakes on a plane and whatever,
This thing actually happened during SARS.
This is actually a really well-written book. I have to say that. The author, I'll just tell you here, John J. Nance is aviation consultant for the ABC television network and airline correspondent for Good Morning America, professional writer and broadcaster for many years. Nance is also a licensed aerospace attorney, an Air Force Reserve officer, and a full-time working airline captain for a major U.S. carrier. So this guy knows what he's talking about when he's writing about planes. Like they always say, write what you know. And sadly, not enough people do that, but he has done that here. He knows about planes. He's writing about it.
A lot of people, in essence, don't know anything, and there's a lot of them who write about it in that situation.
So I have to give him credit for that. Now, anyway, so they're thinking of landing at this point, page 261. When I wrote this down, they're thinking of landing in Cape Town and somewhere else, a very populated place, because they're saying the terrorists wouldn't dare to attack us in a really populated place. And it's like, huh? Why would you think that? And then, plus, it seems like they themselves are the terrorists at this point. I mean, you have a deadly virus that could kill half the world's population. At least that's what you're told. And you're still thinking, oh, I better try to land this sucker. Really?
Yeah.
That's what you're thinking? So, anyway, at this point in the story, I guess I could tell you where I am in the story now, but you know what? It really doesn't matter. I don't need to give away, at this point, he has been refueled, and he did it illegally, I will say. So he did land somewhere, and he was threatening that he'd release the passengers if they didn't fill him up and stuff. So I warned you I was going to give a little bit of spoiler alert, but we don't know. Like, the passengers on the plane, they're saying, well, we don't have any symptoms, so we don't have. Yeah. Does this sound familiar?
Yeah.
Just because you don't have symptoms does not mean you don't have the virus and aren't capable of spreading it around, killing half the world's population.
In the case of COVID, maybe significantly less. We don't know yet.
You don't know. So anyway, that's where I am in that book. And so we have biological warfare that is mentioned in this book. And this was, like I said, this was a while ago, 1995.
It's almost a generation ago, almost 30 years.
And it was mentioned in Doomsday Key. So in Doomsday Key, it was a little bit different. It wasn't nearly as well written. This author, he has a doctorate in veterinary medicine, and so really, maybe he should consider writing more along that line, because this was not believable, and it felt really cut and paste, and like, he read a few interesting things, which he gives information about at the back of the book.
Oh.
Which, like, he said, okay, this was what was true, and this is, the rest I just made up, right? But, which was cool. I like that he supplied that, and I will read what he suggested reading in the back, because I think that would be interesting. More interesting than reading the book. But in this book, the biological warfare was, was a fungus, which is not as likely. It was some sort of a fungus that was found in the stomachs of people that were put in a peat bog, and so that it was preserved there, right? But in the people, but it didn't spread. So anyway, the religious people who put the infected people in with the fungus in that peat bog, they were thinking, okay, well, it won't spread here, because it didn't, right?
So this religious people is a cult?
Well, it was whatever I don't know. They're thinking pre-Druid. It was a long time ago. These people were there.
Oh, way back.
So yeah. So this was, and the thing is a lot of, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. What I was going to say there. I'm going to say, okay, what I was going to say is that there have been threats to wipe out various species, including humans, way back. It's not that this is new. It's just that there's way too many people, and we have way too much mobility.
Wow.
Way too much. Crazy. So it's a problem. And anyway, so I wouldn't recommend this one. I would recommend this one. But having said that, I don't agree with certainly with the captain of this, and I am fairly certain that I'm the only female who's ever read this book. Both of these books are really action-adventure books. They're aimed at a certain demographic.
Studly guys, or people who like to be studly guys?
Ovaries, yeah. So, but yeah, that's...
I want to mention that this guy who wrote it in 1995, so it's prescient, maybe even amazingly prescient, because with SARS, I've mentioned this before, but you might not have been tuned in. There was a case where someone was on a plane. This was early. And Mike Ryan, who was with the Who, not that wonderful rock group, but this corrupt and cynical organization now controlled by the People's Republic of China via Tedros Ghebreyesus, or Ghebreyesus Tedros, or whatever his name is. So Mike Ryan is one of the big three now, but back in Who. But he was a fairly important figure back in 2003, like almost 20 years ago. And his job, one of his jobs, was to get out and rush and make sure that plane was, like the people weren't let loose from the plane. Compare and contrast. Who now, and this includes you, Mikey, Ryan, little Kim, and that's what it is, I think. So you knew back then, there's no excuse, you knew what the WHO was recommending the world do. Open up your borders, keep them open. It's racist to close borders with the People's Republic of China, even though they've got this horrible, almost like doomsday virus loose. Don't close the borders. That's the message now. You might not have said it, but you didn't resign when that message came through and make a big fuss. You didn't resign. Shame on you. You are a criminal against humanity, Mike Ryan, as are all the people responsible for the WHO making that decision to tell people that. To tell the countries in the world, don't close your borders with the People's Republic of China. What they should have been saying is everyone has got to close their borders with everyone else to stop this from spreading. In other words, just in case a country doesn't close their borders like Iran did early on with the People's Republic of China. You are all, anyone in a decision-making capacity with who around the time that, like 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, what was it, December the 31st, when China announced it, People's Republic of China announced it to the world. Anyone responsible with who in a decision-making capacity, you are criminals against humanity, and frankly, I think you're war criminals because you've been contributing to the Cold War. The People's Republic of China has been fighting against not just the so-called West, but the whole rest of the world. Shame on you. You should be in jail for life. But yeah, prescient. Is there anything more you wanted to talk about?
No. I'm dreaming big today.
There are a whole bunch of things I want to talk about, but don't really want to, because I shouldn't have to. On CBC, they were having a show about, and they were glorying in a show that has become a hit on, I guess it's on TV. It's kind of like, I don't know which channel started it.
We don't watch TV anymore, not at all.
We don't have
Got rid of the
cable, no internet hookup. We just go down, well, Pauline does. I try to stay out of the public eye and breath as much as possible, because I've got all sorts of comorbidities. And I have to wear masks, when I got to get treatment, and that's why my nose kind of looks funny. That's how low my immune system is. I don't wear masks that much. It's not as though I have to wear them 8 hours a day, and it's the metal on the bridge of the mask has eaten into the bridge of my nose, and it just won't heal. That's the wound on my nose just won't heal, the bridge of my nose, because I've got such a low immune system. But just talking about this show, and it was it's a big hit apparently. They were figuring, people are stuck at home during COVID. I don't know, people are actually stuck at home. Anyway, increasingly especially. And they found this show to rally around. So they had this guy, and he was saying, it's wonderful. It's so diverse. It only has one white person, or maybe we'll say a white male. It only has one white male, and he's gay. That's not diverse. That's erasing white males, heterosexual males. And he's glorying in it. And he thinks that's diversity. It's not diversity, it's just the opposite. But we live in a world where the fake left-wingers are just doing what left-wingers have tended to do throughout their history, but particularly since 1917. You guys should know what happened in 1917. And George Orwell, many years later, too many years later actually, I'm afraid he kind of supported this regime that came to power in Russia in 1917.
Yeah, but he made up for it by writing the book.
He made up for it to a certain extent.
A couple books, actually.
He wrote a couple of books about it, to a certain extent. He was saying he shouldn't have supported these a-holes in other words, the Stalinists in Spain during the Spanish Civil War. He would rather supported the anarchists. I'm saying, no. That's not going from the frying pan into the fire, but it's just going from the fire into the frying pan. It still isn't fun.
At least he realized he
made a bad mistake,
yeah.
But he still is considered, like any sensible person.
It's better to do your research about who you're getting involved with.
Yeah, before you get involved.
Yeah.
This was during the purges. He was mad at the role of the Stalinists in Spain, but the Stalinists were whacking people right, left, and center. They've been doing it since 1934. Pretty stupid. He wasn't that bright. He was just a novelist. He's got this images of being prescient, all this sort of stuff. No. He eventually saw stuff when it was finally shoved right in front of his nose, or smelled it. But yeah, diverse. Diversity is not erasing the majority of people, or at least the plurality of people. That's not diversity.
What I would
and
like
we're hearing
to hear
this on CBC all the
time. On CBC is very flamboyantly homosexual, Middle Eastern men. I would like to hear that on the CBC.
They'd be putting their lives in danger, like here in Canada. Yeah. But that would be interesting. Yeah. Their lives are in danger here in Canada because we've had, they just say, laissez-faire approach to immigration. Now, come on in. We don't care how benighted you are. We're going to enlighten you.
It's not because I want to put homosexual people from the Middle East in danger.
Or anywhere. And that's one of the ideas why we've got to, or from anywhere. Especially from Canada.
But right now, with the CBC deciding to put the only white males that you happen to hear on the CBC, I can't think of, maybe I'm not listening closely enough, but it seems like the only white males that I hear on the CBC are homosexual. And what that may be telling a lot of unenlightened people, even within Canada, because sadly Canada's immigration hasn't been selective enough. There's been a lot of people who are not enlightened and actually don't believe in democracy for other Canadians.
Or freedom of speech for people other than themselves.
And anyway.
Or freedom of sexual orientation.
But what I was going to say is, by having only white, homosexual white males represented out of the white male population of Canada, it may be telling males of from other cultural backgrounds within Canada that white males are a bunch of homosexuals, and the the real man or other or whatever, right? It's not good. It's not good.
I don't know. When it comes to their guests, that's the way it tends to be. I kind of get the impression there are people like Matt Galloway who knows what his orientation is, and
Yeah,
it's
you're
really
right. I
not
don't know what.
it's really not our business.
No.
But
I don't know what his orientation is, and honestly, I have to say I don't care. Like I don't really think I need to know what anybody does in their bedroom. That's really their business.
Yeah. But again, it's not really their business to be insisting that anyone else acknowledges their orientation by their choice of pronouns.
That is true.
It's hard enough to memorize, particularly like teachers. Oh, you'd better memorize not just their name, but their pronouns. It's hard to memorize names. It's shameful. It's just out and out witch hunting. McCarthyism. You foolishies. You guys are horrible. Strutting around mourning the death of the Rosenbergs. We're traitors. And the point is for me, not to the United States, but to a relatively democratic entity. And they were helping or trying to help to get for the Russians to get nuclear weapons. The communists, not the communists, Stalin, one of the, I'd say, 3 worst mass murderers in the history of the world. I mean, you still got left-wingers crying, oh, they were innocent. What? Look at the document. They were witch hunted. When they're out witch hunting, they're trying to witch hunt Jordan Peterson. Let me make perfectly clear. I've read Jordan Peterson's book. I'm not terribly thrilled about any of his political viewpoints. I think he's one of the benighted folks who come out of Alberta. But they were trying to railroad him out of, I think it's the University of Toronto, because he refused to memorize people's preferred pronouns. That's about the only thing I agree with him on. And all they did was they made him a celebrity. What a bunch of idiots. So now people want to find out what Jordan Peterson's position is on this, that, or the other thing. So now we're in a Cold War. At least we should recognize it. We've been in a Cold War with the Soviet Union, Mark 3.2. Well, the Russian Empire 3.0, the Soviet Union 2.0, and this is like one of the chapters in the Cold War. It's called Cold War, the Amazing Canada-Soviet Hockey Series of 1972. I've been there, done that. Well, I wish I'd been able to play. So here's Ken Dryden talking about. He was in maybe half the games. He just didn't start off the series very well. Nothing ever brought me so low. Nothing ever took me so high. Nothing meant so much. When it comes to sports, that's the way it was for me. Of course, sports is not high on my agenda of things. So here's one of the highest moments in my life, at least when it comes to sports. I was watching at the University of Lethbridge, the main concourse. I think it was maybe section D or something like that. Cornwall has it on that wing. He says that wing. Cornwall has it on that wing. Here's a shot. Henderson made a wild stab for it and fell. Here's another shot. Right in front. They score. Henderson has scored for Canada with, I think, less than a minute to go. So I'm going to read a lot. I hope you don't mind, because this says a lot about the way the Russians did things. So Canada had fallen far behind. As the final period begins, so holy smoke, they've only got 20 minutes out of 60 minutes, and they're behind bad. I think but they scored 3 goals. It was 5-3. That's awful. You don't want to be behind. The number of teams that come behind, even 1 goal behind, to win. Tying is one thing, but to win, they couldn't tie because they'd lost so many games to the Soviet Union. To win the series, they had to actually win. They had to score 3 goals, and the Soviets couldn't score any. Or if the Soviets scored 1, they'd have to score 4. It's just a mountain. It'd be like looking at Mount Everest with a time limit to climb up. As the final period begins, Team Canada bursts out of the starting blocks. Clark, that's Bobby Clark. This is like, I think it's his greatest moment, actually, that series. Clark wins the opening faceoff, and from the blue line, Ellis, that's Ron Ellis, used to play for the Leafs. Very clean player. Powers a drive that Tretiak that's Tretiak's the Russian goalie, has to hold on to for dear life, because Henderson and Clark are immediately on him. Henderson's the big hero of the series. But there were lots of heroes, including Clark and Ellis. Ellis had to cover Harlamov, who was the best Russian player offensively against that. Are immediately on top of him. These guys are primed, but so are the Soviets. Yakushev, big lug of a guy. I think he led the Russians in scoring, at least in goals. And Anderson break out on a 2-on-1. Jeez, they were murder on 2-on-1. And Dryden makes a fine save. So I was saying Dryden had trouble in the series. He adjusted in the end, and he was there in the final game. Makes a fine save on Anderson's hard shot. The Soviets threaten, creating some tense moments, but shoot wide of the net 3 times. They were tight too. Fixation on the net is what makes the difference now. And the fact that Sinden, the stupid, dumb Boston Bruins coach, he was the coach for the Canadiens, head coach. Sinden replaces Frank Mahovlich with his younger brother. Now, Frank Mahovlich is in the Hall of Fame, and I believe he was on Stanley Cup winning teams 6 times in his life. He did make it to the Hockey Hall of Fame. He never quite lived up to billing. In his rookie year, it was, I think, Bobby Hull's rookie year, Frank Mahovlich won the Rookie of the Year award. Replaces Frank Mahovlich with his younger brother on the line with Esposito and Cornway. And that Esposito is Phil Esposito, who's in the Hall of Fame. The Cornway is Yvon Cornway, otherwise known as the Roadrunner. He's in the Hall of Fame. Peter Mahovlich isn't in the Hall of Fame. He should have been. He didn't deserve to be, but he should have earned the right to be there. He's like one of the best players I've ever seen, but he never quite concentrated on things. For a while, he was playing on a line with Guy Lafleur in the mid-70s, and the Canadiens replaced him with Jacques Lemaire. And Jacques Lemaire, guess what? He's in the Hall of Fame. Pete Mahovlich never applied himself.